All right, French learners, buckle up. We're diving deep into the world of French prepositions today, and let me tell you, these little words can be tricky.
They really can, but they're essential, right? Like you can't really form a sentence without them.
Exactly. And they're not always straightforward. I mean, you'd think a preposition would be simple, but French prepositions, they like to keep us on our toes.
It's like they have a mind of their own sometimes, especially when you consider how important word order is in English.
Oh, tell me about it. In English, we can often figure out what's going on just by the word order, but French relies on those prepositions to establish all those relationships between the different parts of a sentence.
And that's where things can get a little, shall we say, interesting for a learner. It's not always one-to-one with English, and that can throw you off.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just memorize a list of French prepositions and their English equivalents and call it a day. It's all about the context, which is thankfully where a tool like Pronunciator really comes in handy.
Totally, because Pronunciator gives you that context, right? You're not just seeing a and day in isolation and trying to guess what they mean. You're seeing them used in actual sentences, in real-life situations.
Which is key because you start to notice those patterns. Like, okay, er can mean to, but it could also be used for possession or even to express purpose.
And then there's de, which is another one that loves to keep us guessing. Of, from, even some. It just depends on what's going on in the sentence.
It's almost like those two prepositions are the stars of the show, wouldn't you say? A and D, they're everywhere.
They really are, and they're not afraid to be the center of attention, especially when verbs of motion get involved. That's where things can really make your head spin.
Oh yeah, like trying to remember when to use N versus O when you're talking about going somewhere.
Yeah.
Masculine countries, feminine countries, plural countries, there's a whole system there.
Right. But you know, it's that kind of complexity that makes language learning so fascinating, isn't it? It's a challenge for sure, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
I completely agree. And for our listeners who are using Pronunciator, my advice is to really pay attention to those subtle differences. Listen to how native speakers use these prepositions.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. The more you practice, the more natural it'll become.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So tell me, what other aspects of French grammar leave you feeling puzzled? Let us know, and we'll dive into them in another episode. Until then, happy learning.